the pricing there, not exactly a surprise, $135 a share. But let's talk about some of the oversubscription numbers, because Bloomberg reporting we're talking about 4 times oversubscribed for this IPO. Retail apparently submitting orders of $100 billion. Then you think about the institutional side. Bloomberg reporting that BlackRock, their share order said to target $5 billion, just one of many here. I wonder what all of this portends when you wrap it together for how this company, how this IPO is going to open tomorrow when it finally begins trading.
Look, it's going to be a watershed moment, not just for SpaceX, but for Musk. But I think also, obviously, all the market is trying to understand, like, what reception is going to look like, what the ripple effect is across the rest of tech. And we've talked about, I think a big reason for some of the sell-off we've seen in tech over the last week is an anticipation of this in terms of a little, white knuckle moment. But it comes down to, like, anyone that's owning SpaceX, you're buying it for the Musk factor. And many that bet against Tesla and Musk going back a decade ago, that was proven historically wrong.
Well, Dan, that's where I want to go, the Musk factor, because something, I've been talking about a lot on this show, on various podcasts, is the idea of the Elon Musk premium. That has been a huge benefit to shares of Tesla. Now you have, another crown jewel of the Musk empire that's entering the public markets. Before this, it was really just Tesla that was your only public market entry point into that universe. Can that Elon Musk premium be sustained across 2 different publicly listed companies?
Well, look, and to that point, we believe over the next year, we've talked about over an 80% chance that Tesla and SpaceX ultimately merge. Because I think that's part of the broader plan, specifically when it comes to AI, data, and all under that Musk ecosystem, especially from a control perspective. But it's all about fourth industrial revolution. And I think when you look at what we've seen with Tesla, and of course the success that SpaceX has had, especially over the last decade, now it comes down to rubber meets the road. What does investor reception look like? And I think like I said, I think it's extremely important, not just for SpaceX, but in terms of the broader market, in terms of what we're seeing, because Anthropic, OpenAI, and others, in terms of what's around the corner.
Yeah, and at least based on Bloomberg reporting, when we talk about how oversubscribed this deal already is, as well as some of the options being put on the table, alternatives, I should say, being put on the table out there, so for retail investors to get a bigger bite at this at some point, we at least know the demand will certainly be there, not necessarily the performance. And we've seen this with mega IPOs, usually out of the gate over the first few weeks and months. Not always a big return, but obviously that can smooth out over time. My question, though, for you, Dan, is that I understand this is a bet on Musk Inc. Largely, but there are a lot of people that are making a big bet as well on the promise of AI and the whole flywheel of AI as well. This is a little bit different than when Tesla went public, when they were pretty much the only game in town when it came to electric cars, at least that with the promise of being able to provide electric cars at scale. This is a crowded space, and there are a lot of big players that could very well do what SpaceX is doing. I don't necessarily mean we're talking about with the big rocket launches, but with regards to data compute capacity and everything that goes around that. I hate to use the word moat, but how much of a moat do you think SpaceX and Musk have in this world?
Yeah, look, you bring up great points. Obviously, space, that's their moat, right, in terms of everything that they've done foundationally in Starlink. But this is really more around data and AI. And that's why it comes down to the XAI was so important in terms of SpaceX and why we ultimately believe it will be around Tesla. Because look, if you look where OpenAI and Anthropic are relative to XAI, there's a lot of ground to make up. And as they laid out in their S1 in terms of the whole market opportunity, there's space, but this is much more of actually a data AI play than what I would call as a traditional space play.
Well, but it gets to this idea, and look, I know that the market for data compute is only going to continue to grow, and we were speaking a little bit earlier with Rich Clarida over at PIMCO. He just put out their annual secular report, and they're talking a base case, basically around $2 trillion in spending per year on average for the next 5 years, and that's just for AI and the energy grid stuff, not even all the ancillary stuff when it comes to space, et cetera. So if we do start to see those numbers, and assuming those numbers go up, how does that pie get split up? Do you think the hyperscalers will maybe get a little bit more piece of that, or is this just all going to be sort of, whoever can get a rocket into space and get those satellites and orbital data centers up there?
Well, I mean, that's one piece of it, but you see some of the deals with, with Google and others, because it's my view, like data centers in space, that's not pie in the sky. I mean, we're talking about something in the next 3 to 4 years that I think becomes realistic. And I think that's, in this fourth industrial revolution, you got to be able to see around corners, whether it's on the hyperscale, whether it's chips, whether what we're seeing in terms of industrial, second, third, fourth derivative. And that's essentially what's happening here. And I think if you go back over the decades, investors that were not able to see whether it was cloud, whether it was AI, whether it was just, really the growth of the internet on the consumer side, I think those, right now we're hitting one of those inflection points in the market.